Kim Gun, and he is a professional killer #1. Some even call him the ghost of fighting. His main treasure in this life is a little dog Mongu. For his sake, he is ready to do anything. And after another bloody contract, Kim Gang went to buy some goodies for his cute pet. Another killer was waiting for him, who sent him greetings from one of his past victims and said that today was the perfect day to die. It seemed that this was how Kim Gun finally died. There was a reason why he had a bad feeling about today. Of course, such a death was quite expected for a killer, but still, Kim Gun really wanted to take revenge on that bastard in hell. The only thing Kim Gun regretted was his poor Mong, who was now alone. But even though a shot in the head is usually fatal to health, Kim Gun didn't die, and was soon able to open his eyes again to see his sweet Mongu, and suddenly, Saitama. Oh, my mistake, just some random bald guy. Kim Gun was so startled that he got up by headbutting the bald monk as hard as he could. He's still wearing his dapper suit and his head is intact. How could he survive after being shot in the head? More importantly, Mongu's here too. At least the cute little puppy was fine. Still as adorable as ever. Mr. Baldy, who got headbutted, stood up resolutely, his voice shaking as he proclaimed that the wait was over. The savior has finally answered their call. Gun was confused as to what this nonsense that Baldy was yapping about. Then, the roars of hundreds of grown men started erupting from around Gun. These people wearing black and red uniforms were cheering for their renewed hope. This stunt only confused Gun even further. What in the world is happening? Another one of these fanatics came up to Gun and called him a savior. It was another bald man, but this time he had some facial hair. He introduced himself as the Dai Doc, or First Elder of the Holy Blood Sect. Before Gun could even ask the hundreds of questions running through his mind, the bald First Elder came forward with one request. That is for Kim Gun to dominate the entire Murim, the ancient martial world. This ridiculous request that came out of nowhere just puzzled him even more. First, where in God's green earth is he? From the looks of the surroundings, they're situated in a mountainous area with perilous topography. One thing's for sure, this is not the world that he once knew. It's a place called Murim, the ancient martial world in another dimension. There are these people who tasked him to dominate this so-called Murim. Apparently, he was summoned by these bastards, but he has a hard time believing the things he's been hearing. After processing the shell shock of appearing in an entirely different dimension, Kim Gun concluded that these people were utterly insane. Thinking that he couldn't deal with a group of crazy people, he hurriedly took his phone out of his pocket, only to see that the signal was dead. So, he turned to the uniformed bastards and demanded that they send him back to where he was before, or he'd start cursing. Even though he's been cursing nonstop already, he asserted that he still has to catch that guy who shot him in the head, so time is of the essence. The Holy Blood Sect members were confused. This wasn't how a savior should behave. Kim Gun vehemently denied the title of savior, insulting the bald First Elder for being a senile bald bastard. He didn't want any more babbling, he just wanted to get back to his world. His complaints were halted by loud and amused laughter coming from outside the cultish circle. Gun covered his ears as an imposing voice approved of his stubbornness, saying that he has the perfect spirit to be a savior. The voice also insisted that the First Elder isn't bald by choice. It's just that his hair doesn't grow. The surrounding members were shocked at such blatant insults to the bald First Elder. Baldy himself was already fuming with anger directed at an old man. That old man warned Gun to be careful, as no matter how much he's called a savior, disrespectfully mocking the members of the organization won't end well for him. This dude is the current leader of the Holy Blood Sect, Sahakyong. He threatened Gun that disrespect might lead him to lose his life. Our hitman sneered and returned the warning to the leader to speak carefully in front of him. It was they who brought him to this place without permission in the first place. What he'll do next will depend on how they speak to him from now on. If the old man makes another slip of the tongue, titles wouldn't matter. There is a decent chance that Gun will snap and just get rid of the old fart once and for all. The bald First Elder sensed the growing tension in the air and tried to dispel it by interjecting. Sahakyong waved his bald head off as he wanted to speak more. He wanted to present a challenge to the alleged savior. If Gun can defeat him, then he can do whatever he wants. He'll even hand over the position of head to Gun, and he can do as he pleases thereafter. The First Elder tried to protest this unacceptable bet, but the leader wasn't done yet. He added that if Gun failed to defeat him, he wanted something in return. Gun did not even let the old man finish. He dismissed the challenge and demanded that they send him back to his original world. Suddenly, his body got a whole lot heavier from the sheer atmospheric pressure. His eyes widened. Gun had never experienced something like this before. The leader of the Holy Blood Sect hadn't moved an inch. He just stood there, projecting a terrifying aura, and he promised to show Gun what the underworld truly looked like. Under tremendous supernatural pressure, he felt like an insignificant ant being looked down upon. He has worked as a killer for most of his life, and yet he's never felt such blood-curdling pressure like this. He psyched himself up. At the end of the day, the opponent was just an old man. As the top hitman known as the Battle Devil, he's been conditioned to never feel fear. So, Kim Gun squared up. He put his hands up to defend. The old man asked him if he was ready, and he just scoffed at the ridiculous question. Sahakyung confidently proclaimed that Gun's arrogance would not last long. Gun was getting tired of all the blabbering. He conceitedly yielded the first shot, daring the old man to come at him with full force. The sect leader would not decline such a generous offer. In less than a second, Sahakyung vanished from the spot he was standing in. It was at this moment that Gun knew that he royally messed up. The old man had closed the distance between them without being seen. When Gun caught a glimpse of the opponent, a clenched fist with untold strength was already heading for his body. Too slow to react, a clean hit landed on his stomach. It was so hard that it must have rearranged his internal organs. The leader pushed him off with an unfathomably powerful strike that defied the laws of physics and logic. Gun found himself planted deep into a concrete wall. He would have flown a lot farther had the wall not stopped the terrifying momentum. His crash caused a loud explosion, scattering dust and debris. Kim Gun was wide-eyed with shock and disbelief. He threw up blood, and his whole body felt the pain. The leader walked up to him with a disappointed sigh. Their alleged savior can't even avoid such a basic attack. Now, they must ask themselves if this man is truly their savior. Sahakyung marked him as a genuinely pathetic fighter, one that is not even worth facing. That's when Mangu decided to start chomping down on the old man's pants to avenge and defend his injured dad. Seeing this made Gun forget about the agony of his injury. He urgently yelled at Mangu to run away and save himself. Then he turned to the old man and warned him that if he touched Mangu, blood would truly flow on these grounds. But his empty threats fell on deaf ears as Mangu flew past him at alarming speeds. Gun's precious little puppy had been kicked so hard that he hit the concrete wall as well. The old man had already turned his back on the defeated fraudulent savior to task the first elder to throw the fraud into the underground prison and feed his beast to the wolves. Kim Gun screamed that Mangu was not a beast, but his family at the top of his lungs. Then his voice fell back into an eerie calm. He reiterated his threat from earlier that touching Mangu would lead to certain death. He asked the leader if he thought that he was the strongest one at that moment. That idea was ridiculous to Kim Gun. He thought that the leader of all these people was not strong at all. He slowly stood up and posed a question of who everyone thinks holds the greatest strength in the world. Maybe some would answer that strength lies in the hands of those who have a lot of money and resources. The first elder warned Gun to stop getting on the master's nerves. Maybe the strongest is simply the one that possesses the greatest raw strength. Maybe it's the one with the knife, the blade that can cut anything. Well, our boy doesn't believe that any of those people are the strongest. The first elder and the master looked at their disgraced savior, pulling out a strangely shaped object. Mr. Savior urged everyone to listen well to what he was about to say. The strongest one in the world is the one with a fucking gun. An explosion resounded around the mountainous area, and the smell of gunpowder filled the air. The bald elder and the master did not understand what he was saying. They just stood straight and looked blankly, still trying to figure out what the use of that strangely shaped object was. Then, the bullet penetrated the master's forehead, shattering his skull and scrambling his brain in just a millisecond. The bald first elder echoed the master's question, curious as to what Kim Gun was holding. Then, the next thing you know, blood was spurting out of the old man's head as he collapsed on the ground, folding like a used lawn chair. Bro died by an accurately placed shot without even knowing what a gun is. Sahakyung, 64 years old, is the leader of the Holy Blood sect, or at least he was. The bald elder did not know what to make of this ridiculously confusing situation. What's certain was that the alleged savior did something, but now, the leader's dead. With the leadership transferring to his hands, he ordered the surrounding members to attack and not let the guy who killed their leader live. Angry, uniformed members came running in to avenge their master. Kim Gun regained his cold-blooded composure as he welcomed the enemies calmly. He's confident that he could tide through this human stampede. He still has one more gun in the holster, after all. Kim Gun aimed at the incoming Holy Blood sect army and started raining down bullets. Each bullet precisely targeted one head after another. This was his statement that these bastards had messed with the wrong person. It was one shot. One kill. Anyone who got in his range died a quick and bloody death. With every trigger squeeze, another sect loyalist was dead to rights. The ground below them was stained with blood and brain matter. Bullets entered the forehead and exited at the back of the head. His dual-wielding style was perfect for eliminating droves of enemies who dared to run up with fists as their only weapon. He did not care about his bullet count. It had become a race of whether he would run out of ammo or the Holy Blood sect would run out of men first. Seeing their comrades fall one by one, fear started to spread among the charging members. Hearing the hopeless pleas of the Holy Blood Sect men, the bald First Elder realized he must have made a mistake. Those on the front lines finally broke down and begged the gunman to stop. No matter what world Kim Gun was placed in, pleading and apologies always followed when he showed his true colors. Back in the modern world, he liked to share his beliefs with those who surrendered. His principle was simple: to do everything in moderation. Landing a punch on a wimpy thug, Kim Gun knocked out the enemy while shattering a few teeth in the process. The thug passed out before he even hit the ground, but he was not done yet. Before hitting the pavement, Kim Gun grabbed the guy by the head. Along with moderation, revenge had always been his ironclad belief. A few years ago, the 18-year-old Kim Gun was already a prominent figure on the streets, feared by many, and dubbed the Fighting Devil. He had been in 282 fights, with 0 draws, 0 losses, and 282 wins. He was the leader of Baekgoi Yahang and the Incheon Alliance. But in this particular alley, in this typical gang fight, his worldview would be changed by a stranger. The suited-up stranger asked him if he thought he was the strongest, if he thought there was no one around who could beat him anymore. The stranger disagreed. The genuinely strongest guy is the one he won't be able to beat with a fist in a million years. A man he won't be able to knock out no matter how hard he tries. Kim Gun, the young and arrogant upstart, thought that such a man didn't exist. He confronted the stranger, asking if the bald bastard knew who he was talking to. Gun arrogantly returned the question with sarcasm, but before he could boast about his record or achievements, he felt a sharp pain after a swift bang. He looked down and saw his leg with a large hole, bleeding profusely. The stranger insisted that no matter how solid and sleek his fist became, he would never be able to win against the man with the gun. Kim Gun kneeled down in pain, trying to stop the bleeding as he asked the stranger why he was being targeted like this. The stranger revealed that he had just come here to make a suggestion. He could have just said that in the first place and not shot the young man in the leg. Right? Mr. Stranger laughed and joked that he had just shot Kim Gun lightly. But he also did it to demonstrate how amazing it is to feel that anyone's life can be decided with a single squeeze of one's finger. Kim Gun was in a lot of pain. He hurriedly asked the man what he wanted from him. The suited-up guy's suggestion was more like an invitation for Gun to work for him. If he did, the stranger promised to make him the strongest man, for real. Which brings us back to Murim. Gun had stopped firing. The barrel of his pistol shone under the bright daylight. He shot the bald First Elder with a non-lethal shot to the left shoulder. The gunman towered over the wounded bald elder and asked who he thought the strongest man was. In fear of suffering the same fate as the other Holy Blood Sect members, Baldy admitted he was powerless and would give Kim Gun whatever he wanted just to be spared. And so, our boy was politely escorted into the headquarters where he was given the most comfortable seat. Sitting on the throne with a pistol in hand, his suit had been replaced with a more comfortable black and red robe. Kim Gun had been crowned the new leader of the Holy Blood Sect. The elder also kindly appointed his puppy, Kim Mongo, as the new vice leader of the sect. Seeing the dumb smile on the bald First Elder's face, Gun shot another round near Baldy's head. It almost grazed his ear. Had he moved another inch, his ear would have been done for. Gun did not like being appointed the new leader at all. He had not asked the bald bastard to do something like this. He demanded to be taken back to his previous world as he needed to take revenge on the guy who shot him in the supermarket. But he was asking for the impossible as even the bald First Elder didn't know how to send him back. It's safe to say that Gun did not like hearing that answer at all. He should have been told about this essential fact earlier. He shoved the muzzle of the pistol against the bald head of the elder, threatening to paint the headquarters with blood and gore. If he knew this bastard was useless, he would have sent him along with the leader and all those corpses. Fearing for his life once again, Baldy kneeled and begged to be given a few days to figure a method out somehow. He just needed a little bit of time and promised he would deliver. Frustrated, Kim Gun dismissed the elder out of the room. Baldy made a run for the door, afraid the crazy gunman would change his mind. Gun sat back down on the throne and pondered his predicament. He had his cell phone on him, but it was just a useless brick without a signal. Suddenly, that same phone started mysteriously ringing in his hand. He was startled, to say the least. He was sure it wasn't working earlier. What greeted him was that spam text he got before heading to the supermarket. Now that he was reading it, it did not seem like spam anymore, as it mentioned the world of Murim. As of now, he couldn't reply to this bizarre text message anymore. It stated that there was a mission he needed to complete in order to get back to Earth. It playfully hinted that the mission's objective was relatively easy to guess. To put it simply, he would have to complete the Murim conquest. If he didn't complete his mission of conquering the world within a year, he would suffer the heartbreaking penalty of losing something precious to him. This precious thing was none other than the cute little Mongo. The texter continued taunting him, saying that the cute little puppy shouldn't die, so Gun should do his best to fulfill his mission. The sick bastard even sent a good luck message with a happy emoticon at the end. Frustrated and enraged, Gun cursed the spam texter so hard that it could be heard from outside the headquarters. The first one he looked for was that bald elder. Unaware that he had entered the room, Baldy kept on talking trash about the new sect leader for being a crazy and unreasonable bastard out loud while packing his things up. Seeing the bags laid down, Gun asked Baldy if he was going somewhere nice. Hearing his voice felt like being stalked by the devil. Baldy insisted he was just talking about his son and not Gun. As for the bags, they were also for his son. He insisted he had been working hard to find a way to send the sect leader back home. It seemed like every interaction they had ended with Baldy begging for his life. He even tried labeling himself as an old bald man to get some pity. Not giving Gun a chance to talk, Baldy kept on yapping about how being bloodthirsty would eventually get him punished with a death filled with pain and brutality. Gun had to raise his voice and threatened to hit the hairless bastard just to shut him up. Anyways, he just came here to inform the bald elder that their plans had changed. They were going with the one Baldy mentioned first thing when they met. The first elder could not believe what he was hearing. This brutal gunman actually agreed to fulfill his role as the savior and sect leader and rule the Muram world. Baldy was moved to tears upon hearing the savior they'd been waiting for going through with the prophecy. He excitedly promised he would get the crew ready in no time. However, Gun had one condition that he would not budge on. The bald first elder might look pathetic, but he was a pretty reliable force inside the sect. He assembled every member in the courtyard to proclaim the orders of their new lord. From now on, they were no longer the Holy Blood sect. They would now work unconditionally under the banner of the Mongo sect. No one seemed to have a problem with that, as everyone cheered and chanted their new name under a new banner and leadership. But deep inside, those who were cheering were crying with regret. They were already considering running away from this shit show. As far as everyone knew, wasn't Mongo the name of that beast the sect leader loved so much? Upon seeing the cuteness of the puppy, their doubts were washed away. Everybody loved Kim Mongo. Maybe the sect would flourish under this new structure, and perhaps it would be good. That was the thought going through everyone's mind. There were only 364 days remaining until the Mongo sect ruled the whole Muram world. The news that the leader of the demonic sect had changed swiftly reached the ears of people in high places. The fact that they're not even called the Holy Blood sect anymore came as a shock to everyone. An elderly man exuding dignity could not fathom why that organization would sully their reputation by rebranding to become the Mongo sect. Gu Giguang, the Kunlun sect leader, knew one thing for sure. A new wind was blowing through the failing demon sect. Whether that's good or bad is still up in the air. The leader inquired of his subordinate whether there was any information about the new leader yet. But the only info circulating is that he uses a strange magic attack. Gu Giguang did not like the sound of that at all. The subordinate added that there are accounts saying every time the mysterious new leader moves, one person dies automatically. When the leader asked what kind of great move this was, the subordinate replied by lifting his middle finger and flipping off the old man. This is the mysterious technique everyone's buzzing about. It is said that the new guy moves only one finger, but the sect leader wanted to make sure if it really had to be the middle one. The subordinate lacks information, but the middle finger just seemed perfect for a technique that kills in one hit. Anyway, it's inevitable that the bloody wind will blow again. Inside the new Mongo sect, shouts of dissent could be heard from outside. Deong Guang, the former Holy Blood sect's fifth elder, is protesting that just because the new guy killed their old leader, a change of leadership should not be finalized without consulting the other elders. But Du Xiaoho, the former Holy Blood sect's second elder, reasoned that it is stated in their doctrine that the strongest person shall ascend to the position of leader. Even if it's written in the sect rules, the red-hot fifth elder still refuses to accept this travesty. He was against all the prophesized savior BS in the first place. The second elder had to reel him in before the new leader overhears his yapping. Then another voice echoed the fifth elder's complaints, stating that he was disappointed with how things went too. On the other side of the table sits a big man. He complained about how much he sacrificed for the sake of the Holy Blood sect. Sleeping, the foods he wanted to eat, the times when he wanted to play. He endured and gave up everything. But now, a stranger sits at the helm without their approval? Yuk Pei, former Holy Blood sect fourth elder, doesn't like that. The second elder remained civil, but gave those who had some grievances a way to quell their dissatisfaction. They can just show their frustration through strength. But he reminded the two rogue elders of one simple and immutable fact. The man they were complaining about killed the previous leader. If these two rushed to him with this kind of spunky attitude, there's no telling what might happen. The most likely outcome is that they'll be the next ones to die. The three elders swiftly exchanged a series of meaningful glances, seemingly waiting for others to get in on the plan. Speaking of the mystery man, Kim Gun, the new leader of the Mongo sect, has entered the building. He was introduced by the bald first elder. It looks like the heated elders have some brains as they stood up. and welcomed Kim Gun with as much hospitality as they could provide for this first meeting. The fourth elder's eyes eventually drifted to Gun's feet, where the adorable little Mongo was shyly hiding behind his dad. Big Boy Elder was smitten with how small and cute the little pup was. He asked where this cute beast came from. Hearing those words did not land on Gun's ears well. The fourth elder slowly closed in, seemingly motioning to pick Mongo up. Before he could get close enough, he heard a grave voice calling him a fucking idiot. Much to everyone's surprise, the new leader smacked the crap out of the big boy's mouth. His big body hit the floor quite harshly. That backhand smack must have been firm. Kim Gun cannot stand people making fun of Mongo. At least that is what he detected from the fourth elder. He stared the guy down and ordered Yukpei to never open his mouth in front of him anymore. When he did not get a reply, Gun called him a dumbass. Shocked and confused, the fourth elder just apologized. Now that he has opened his mouth, he's still a dumbass. Once that was settled and everyone was seated, the bald first elder proposed the start of the elders' meeting. Kim Gun sat at the head of the table with his feet up in a lazy pose. Baldy gave him the floor to say whatever he wanted to say. He started off by informing them that from now on, they would begin to conquer the Mirim world. That's a good start, as they can finally regain their old fearsome reputation. However, if they do not succeed in conquering the Mirim within a year, Kim Gun implores each one of his members and elders to kill themselves. Now, if they do not want to die, then they had better get their asses to work. For starters, Kim Gun wants to hear some ideas on how to start conquering the Mirim world in a year. The scholarly second elder politely raised his hand. He thinks it would be better if he just came forward to say something. In his mind, he was ready to make the case for why it was impossible to conquer the Mirim within 1 year, but he was immediately shut down by the new leader. Kim Gun stopped him from saying anything because he somehow looked like a TNC to Gun. Before this gentleman could even say what he wanted to say, Gun already felt that this dude was just trying to say that his goals were unrealistic. The second elder was successfully shut down, but it made another elder angry. He smashed the table and demanded that they stop this farce. As the fifth elder continued to listen, the more dumbfounded he became. He appealed to the things he'd been yapping about earlier, such as how there were no elder consultations for the crowning of a new leader. Kim Gun might have defeated the sect leader, but the red-hot elder can't just accept this. If Gun wants to be recognized as the legitimate leader by everyone in the sect, then he will have to fight for the right to sit where the previous leader sat. Kim Gun laughed at this foolish request. It might be dumber than his mission to conquer the Mirim within a year. He asked the elder if he was sure about this challenge. Well, Dung Guang is not as dumb as he looks. He reckons that Kim Gun must have a strange ability, just like the previous leader. Under the table, Gun was already checking his pistol. He does not have a lot of bullets remaining, so he needs to save as much as possible. This odd act of looking and fiddling under the table did not escape Dung Guang's attention, but he thinks that the fraudulent leader must be getting scared. He's confident that whatever made the former leader fall won't be a problem for him. The first elder, who's seen just how ruthless Gun really is, tried to talk his junior brother down. Deong Guang walked uncomfortably close to the stone-faced Kim Gun. Then the dumbass started making silly faces while asking the leader if he was getting scared. In the first elder's mind, he's already thinking that this kid is done for. Kim Gun looked up. The anger was palpable in his face. Even the freaking dog was surprised. Not getting a verbal answer, the fifth elder continued to prod him for a response. He even dared the leader to look him in the eye if he wanted to say something. Then, Kim Gun opened his mouth. He calmly asserted that he wasn't scared. He was just searching for his peace. He quickly aimed it at the annoying elder and squeezed the trigger. But he must have made a mistake, as what he pulled wasn't his gun at all. It was his cell phone. He mistakenly took out the wrong thing, but he might as well check if there's anything new in his inbox, right? Upon checking, his eyes opened wide in surprise. Meanwhile, Deong Guang continues tormenting him from the sidelines, daring him to attack. Well, it seems like this red-haired bastard really wants to play with him today. He stood up, walked up to him, stood eye to eye, and proposed to play a game. But first, he wants to put some conditions in place. Some house rules before playing. Maintaining a reputation is a difficult thing in the leader's position. While Gun was prodding Deong Guang to agree to a game, he was suddenly struck with an ominous feeling deep in his gut. Kim Gun's words didn't even register in his mind. He could only see the new leader as a hungry beast of prey, just messing with him before pouncing for the kill. After making the former sect leader eat his bullets, Kim Gun is now facing the fifth elder in a duel. Some sect members on the sidelines think that the current leader is being too reckless with his actions. Others believe that it's the fifth elder who's being reckless with this duel. Well, everyone thinks that Deong Guang became a grandmaster-level fighter just because he was strong, but that cannot be farther from the truth. There is one aspect of the fifth elder that makes him utterly terrifying. It is an established fact that he's never even fazed by getting hit while getting cursed out by strong foes. He would just stand his ground and take the punches and strikes without batting an eye. Sometimes, he would even taunt the enemy to try harder. Daeungkwang reached the top not by being strong, but by making his enemies who dared hit him collapse from exhaustion. It's the typical scene for him. He'll just stand with his hands crossed in front of him, and he will goad the enemy to go harder. No level of physical strength could go through his impenetrable defense. That's why Daeungkwang earned a fearsome nickname. He is said to be so tough that he would just scoff at a tiger's attack. He has been dubbed as the Tiger Vanquisher throughout the land. While other sect members were busy gassing up the fifth elder, a grating voice yelled that they just didn't know anything about what was going to happen. There's an ugly-ass, sweaty dude among the crowd. He claimed to be there at the scene back where it started, and that he saw the true terror of the new leader. By his recollection, it was a quiet day without a cloud in the sky. But then suddenly, thunder rumbled on the ground. The next thing everyone saw was the previous leader bloodily lying on the ground, dead. And then the real fight began from there. Sweaty Guy claimed that every time the current leader moved, people would start falling one by one like they were struck by the strongest thunder and lightning. The sight of them dropping like flies filled Sweaty Guy with such horror that he had to pull out the 3D glasses and a tub of popcorn, even though those things didn't exist in this time period. And even if the opponents were weak, the leader did not make any exceptions. He gunned down an old man without flinching. At that moment, the nickname that goes along with the sect leader's actions came to mind. As they say, even the crow shuts its beak in the face of such shock. Kim Gun was dubbed as No Gyum Ma, or the Scum Silencing Demon. The other members had to admit that it really is quite an intimidating nickname. Then, the chatter stopped, and everyone shifted focus to the stage as the sect leader and the fifth elder entered. To some of them, this would be like the battle of the century, and it's about to begin any second now. The elder tried to call the leader by his nickname, but mispronounced it to sound vulgar. Daeungkwang clasped his fists together, showing his innate strength. Displaying his cut body for everyone to see, he asked the leader if he was ready to be beaten up. Gun just clicked his tongue in this ridiculousness. He's used to this type of guy talking big at first. Well, they only run their mouths until they get shot. Someone stepped up to officiate the match so the battle between the sect leader and the fifth elder could commence. The format of the fight is as Gun requested. It will be a match format called Original Judgment. With the gun in his hand, the leader explained that the rules are simple. Each person attacks the other once, and the last one standing wins. However, the winner of this battle can decide the life or death of the loser. Now, as the official asks who will attack first, the fifth elder cuts him off. He came here to remind everyone of his nickname. He is the Tiger Vanquisher, the man who can withstand even a tiger's attack. So, he would like to personally yield to the first attack, just to flex on the boss. Kim Gun thinks that this guy might have a few screws loose in his head. He aimed the pistol, and since the elder was foolishly giving him the first attack, he'd like to say one thing. Gun kindly gave Daeungkwang the spot he would be attacking, the chest. The fifth elder smiled a toothy grin, thinking that the leader would regret underestimating his defense. And so, the Tiger Vanquisher flexed his muscles, and his physique tightened in front of everyone. With his toned body, he brought his arms up to his chest and dared the leader to come at him with everything. A loud bang echoed all over the sect, and the next thing you know, the fifth elder's right thigh was already bleeding profusely. The official was flabbergasted. The fifth elder felt a pang of pain that he'd never felt before. Silence filled the courtyard as everyone couldn't believe their eyes. Gun broke the silence as if he did not just trick the fifth elder and everyone here. The audience was not impressed. They think that the leader's technique just produced a lot of noise with no power to back it up. It should not be nearly enough to defeat Daeungkwang. They might think that, but in reality, the fifth elder was already down on the floor, bleeding all over the concrete stage, cursing and kicking his feet around. Daeungkwang's pathetic screams shut the audience up. Then, the red-haired fool started protesting the deceit. The leader announced that he'd go for the chest, not the thigh. In response, Gun casually walked a little closer and mocked the fifth elder for falling for the oldest trick in the book. He flashed a smug smile that almost made Daeungkwang pass out in anger at the playful bastard. Still, the fifth elder can't possibly show such a shameful sight in front of his direct subordinates who showed up to support him. He needs to get up quickly, but his legs are way too weak. But from experience, he knew that the more desperate he got, the calmer he would need to be. Besides, it's his turn to attack now, and he still has one operational leg. Now that it's his turn, he warned the leader to be nervous as his punches are renowned to be very painful. His fist technique has a very fitting name for something that makes his victims feel the pain of being bitten by a tiger. Daeungkwang squared up and primed his attack. Its name is Tiger's Mouth Fist. About halfway through his impressive charge, he felt another pang of pain on his remaining uninjured leg as blood spurted out. The official doesn't even know what to do anymore. He has never seen such blatant trickery. Daeungkwang was feeling miserable and hopeless. Just what kind of person is this leader to do such things? Well, Kim Gun could not give less of a shit for the rules that he set. He's the leader, and he gets to shoot whenever he wants. Just as the officiating guy was about to explain the rules of this one-on-one duel, the simple regulation that they should be taking turns attacking, Gun cut him off. Kim Gun questioned where that rule was written. It's certainly not in the Constitution of Korea. He pressed the official to cite his article and clause so he would abide by the rule. The first elder watched in the front row, thinking that even the devil himself would be surprised when it came to this new leader of theirs. Meanwhile, Deung Guang had both of his legs taken out. He can't stand, let alone move, with these injuries. The leader came up to him with an old saying from the world he came from. If you enter a tiger's den, you will live if you keep your wits about you. He thinks that this saying is untrue. He believes that to enter a tiger's den and come out alive, all you will need is a freaking gun. As the barrel of the pistol stared him down, Deung Guang felt his death coming. He stumbled on his words as he admitted that he was wrong. He swore to do better from now on, just for a chance of reconsideration. But even after all that, Kim Gun still pulled the trigger, and a bang silenced everyone once again. Deung Guang was still bracing himself for the end of his life, while Gun was just messing with him with playful sounds. Then, the new leader turned around and claimed that Deung Guang owed his life to the leader from then on. So, he better not get on Gun's nerves. The fifth elder just sat there, speechless and continuously bleeding from his gunshot wounds. He felt a feeling that he never felt before. He feels so victimized, but at the same time, he doesn't. Deung Guang smiled and attributed his confusion to the forming of a friendship between real men and the leader. While walking away hurriedly, we find out that Gun almost got screwed at that last part if he didn't improvise. It turns out that he ran out of bullets for the kill shot. But that problem might not be too big of a deal, as he's expecting something. He pulled out his phone and immediately checked his inbox for any new messages. At the top of his inbox was a mission update for his victory against the fifth elder. Achieving victory without killing has gained him a random additional reward on top of 2 magazines or 30 rounds of ammo. He was confused at first. He didn't think that an additional reward would be activated. Gun turned to the bald first elder and asked if there were only 4 of them in the council. It turns out that they actually have 5. And the third elder, who is currently absent, has been taking care of business. From one enemy to the next, the blade only needed 1 slice to claim life. Blood is spilled, and heads have rolled all in the hands of a single killing machine. After slaughtering leagues of men, the third elder was informed of what happened to the sect in her absence. Yes, the third elder is a badass assassin. It looks like while she's trying hard to revive the sect, some people are working hard to kill it altogether. But still, she acknowledges the fact that the new leader defeated both the previous head and the fifth elder. That's not an ordinary feat. She wants to meet her new boss. So she wrapped up her operation in this random side of the country and got ready to head back to the sect. Jin Hwaran, the former Holy Blood sect's third elder, is very excited to meet this Kim Gun fella. The next day came, and it seemed like something wrong was happening with Mongo. He's been snarling and barking since early morning, but he doesn't seem hungry. It turns out that Mongo's been snarling at the fifth elder, who's been waiting by the leader's bedside for quite some time now. Gun was so caught off guard by his subordinate's freaky face that he punched it squarely in the nose. With blood on his knuckle, Gun played it off as if he just almost punched the poor guy. It turns out that while he was sleeping, Deung Guang had been refining his martial arts. He's doing so in case someone tries to threaten the safety of the sect leader, not knowing that he looks more like a threat than anything else that could come through the doors. After getting shooed out of the room, Deung Guang dejectedly walked out. Then came the bald first elder. He's been tasked to check in with Gun first thing today. The new leader wants to call all the elders to ask them something. The elders have gathered with haste. Now that everyone was present, Gun wanted to ask why he was labeled as the chosen one. Why do all of them have to follow the strict martial arts code? Mr. Scholarly Second Elder raised his hand dutifully and volunteered to explain the lore. An organization called the Woolen Alliance runs the show. They're also known as the Congregation of the Righteous Factions. Comprised of multiple elite sects and clans, they might as well be labeled as the most powerful organization. And this behemoth of an alliance looked at the Holy Blood sect as a thorn in their side. The reason for that, despite being no different from themselves, is a little iffy, to say the least. It's just that the Holy Blood sect's prosperous appearance seemed irritatingly conspicuous to them. Time passed, and simple jealousy soon turned into arrows of temptation aimed at the sect. The Woolen Alliance attacked. They burned down the sect's properties and sent the members into a frenzied run for survival. The so-called righteous factions handed down the order to kill every Holy Blood sect member, regardless of age. Even the children shouldn't be spared. Being overwhelmed by the combined forces of elite clans and families, they were defeated. The Holy Blood sect have fallen into a state of desperate recovery while the surrounding hyenas see them as prey. Their weakness did not appeal solely to the righteous factions, but also to the unorthodox ones. That's because the former Holy Blood sect belongs to neither the righteous nor the unorthodox. They have grown with immense success while simply following their own doctrines and principles. They've always tried to live peacefully, but their success made them a target of hate. And now, with the Savior as the new sect leader, everyone is silently hoping to unify this chaotic Murim world and achieve peace. But the second elder is still campaigning for a change of expectations. By all accounts, conquering the world within a year is practically impossible. That is Gun's one non-negotiable condition, though. The new leader never said anything about peace. His declaration was explicit that they only needed to conquer. He does not look like some kind of Power Ranger, right? These talks about peace unification are unrealistic. Modern-day nations can't even do that in their previous world. Besides, his being the savior is still unclear. The first bald elder explained that the truth is that they don't exactly know why Gun became the chosen one either. Gun did not want to hear that at all. Well, the story goes back to the day they were attacked by the Wulin Alliance. While the sect burns to the ground and the corpses of the members litter the streets, something happens. The bald first elder was cornered by one of the hyenas as he hurriedly tried to convince the murderer that he was just a common laborer. But just looking at his clothes would make it evident that this guy's not a common laborer. His excuse was a terrible joke. The murderer looked at that damned bald head and immediately clocked who the first elder was. Unbeknownst to the guy, a man wearing a dark cloak was casually walking beside him. Just as the murderer was about to question the cloaked man, demanding that he reveal himself, the murderer was sent to the Shadow Realm in a single slap that made his whole head spin. Baldy has never seen anything brutally disturbing in his life. Now, he turned to beg to the mysterious cloaked man to be spared. He insisted that he was just an old man who did not have much longer to live. But the cloaked man did not touch him. He did not get close to him. The guy just tossed a scroll to the first elder's feet. Cloaked man explained that on the date and location written in the scroll, the savior who will unify the Murim world will come. The Holy Blood sect must prepare well and welcome him. Baldy was confused, but at least this sounds like something game-changing. The man insisted that they would understand what the letter meant when they read it. Baldy tried to chase after the guy, asking about his identity, but he never got a reply. So, no one knows who that mysterious man is. Not even a clue. But the first elder can recall one characteristic that the cloaked man had. Baldy proudly proclaimed that the mystery man did not have any hair, just like him. Kim Gun can sense the strong bald-to-bald connection here. Anyway, it seems like that mysterious man was sent here for an unknown purpose. While the elder meeting was still underway, a heavily wounded sect member stormed into the room. He apologized for his disrespectful and abrupt entrance, but it seemed like the leader was needed outside and fast. Kim Gun strolled out of the meeting room, and he did not like what he was seeing at all. On the sect's courtyard were the lifeless bodies of dozens upon dozens of his subordinates, their blood staining the tiles. Then a raspy and slimy voice asked Gun if he was the new sect leader of this so-called Mongo sect. He expressed his apologies for those guards lying dead. It just could not be helped, for they kept blocking him from entering the premises. It was Minju, the one known as the Ghost Sword Gate's master, dubbed the Demon Gatekeeper. He assured the new leader not to worry. Gun wanted to hear the reason why this ghostly man slaughtered his men. The reason for this sudden morning breeze. Why did Minju, the Demon Gatekeeper, storm through the sect's gates with his finest fighters in tow? He admitted that his organization has been eyeing the decline of the Holy Blood sect after being targeted by the Wulin Alliance. Then, he heard the news that the old leader had been slain by the new guy. Minju has some kind of bad blood against the departed leader, Sahyok-yong, and he can't accept that his rival has died at the hands of a nameless outsider. So, with a new and delicious prey at hand, the Demon Gatekeeper can't just sit still, can he? Gun did not listen to all that yapping. He just insulted Minju for having such an unnaturally long snake tongue. The guy basically admitted to trying to loot an empty house. Minju did not deny that. Now that the purpose of this violent visit is clear, what will both parties do? The Demon Gatekeeper assured Gun that he doesn't have to cut himself just because it's virtually over for this new Mongo sect. The ghostly swordsman kept calling him a fool for some reason. But before the blades were drawn, one of Minju's subordinates stepped up and proclaimed that the best fighter doesn't have to participate. Now that Sahyok-yong is no longer to protect the sect, maybe Gyum Gaon Pung, Ghost Sword Gates No. 2, can handle the remnants of a superpower on his own. Gun could not believe his eyes. That body and that axe just screams dumbass. He asked if the brute was trying to chop his head off with that oversized axe. It did not take much to rile up Ghost Sword Gates No. 2 as he charged in for a simple taunt. You have to admit that with that size and speed, he would be a fearsome foe when it comes to physicality. Gun cursed under his breath. This guy's physique is no joke. That's an absolute tank right there. As the brute was about to reach the stairs, the leader was starting to feel uneasy. He tried to reach for his coat and had a grave realization that his gun was nowhere to be found. Before he knew it, the brute was already within striking distance, brandishing the axe to split him in half lengthwise. The axe was fully swung and blood splattered in the air. Gun was surprisingly all right. A man who will never let any harm fall upon the sect leader has jumped to the front and taken a blade for his boss. Yukpei, the fourth elder, took that axe swing with his arms. He claimed that he didn't even get scratched, but his arms were bleeding from a pretty deep wound. The fifth elder must have been awakened by Yukpei's heroism. He cannot forgive these people who are not yet content with just invading the Mongo sect. They even dared to harm the leader. For Dong Guang, this is a grave sin that must be punished and paid back with blood. He unleashed his ruthless tiger mouth's fist, and this time, it actually landed on the enemy's face. Based on the force and impact that it delivered, it's safe to say that the extravagant name of the technique is very much warranted. It was so powerful that it was felt all the way back to the sect's entrance. The fifth elder is about to go boogeyman and collect the Ghost Sword Gate's debts with their lives. Gun would have gotten in trouble if these two elders had not stepped up. He thought their backbones would be strong, but they actually surpassed his expectations. Even Yukpei, that big bag of flesh, is proving himself to be quite valuable too. Maybe if Gun could use them well, he would be able to dominate the Murim world in no time. Minju asserted that the Mongo sect was making a foolish choice here. Now, they must watch carefully as his blade delivers the results that their foolish choice will bring. Gun continued to ask the guy why his tongue was so long. Also, he has another thing that he wants to say, but he'll only say it once, so it's better if Minju listens. He just wanted to say that he doesn't avoid opponents looking for fights, but he's not one to spare their lives either. We're about to see the leaders of two factions go toe-to-toe against each other. Who are you betting on? With a single kill order from the leader, the fourth elder tripped down the stairs trying to charge forward, while the fifth elder goes sicko mode in the front lines. Truthfully, Dong Guang has been waiting for the leader's orders to go hog wild against these scums that tried to bully the Mongo sect. Gun was just glad that the people around him were useful in his mission. Unfortunately, they can't all be athletic killing machines. Yukpei is a big bag of meat that's only good for defense, and he's clumsy. But the fifth elder was actively showing off why he was dubbed as the Tiger Vanquisher with his skill set. He has been pent up for a while now. He even helplessly lost against the leader, so he's itching to display his real skill in combat. Ghost Sword Gate's proud swordsmen charged at him in droves, using their agility and superior numbers to overwhelm the fifth elder. But Daeong Guang is a veteran fighter with plenty of experience going up against foes with blades. He masterfully dodged every critical strike with no wasted movements. And once he got into a comfortable range to counterattack, he did not let the chance slip by. Just a single punch to the stomach would be enough to neutralize these scrawny swordsmen. His fist was so lethal that it might have caused some internal bleeding upon contact. The remaining enemies weren't fazed. They intended to use the opening while one of their own was getting clapped to attack. Fifth Elder efficiently dealt with the two-pronged attack with a spin move that seemingly conjured a tiny hurricane in the middle of the courtyard. Then, he sensed another sneak attack coming from behind. A swordsman with a disgusting mug was coming at him straightforwardly while wishing him dead. This shameful sneak attack resulted in a bloody collision. It was revealed that the fifth elder did not bother to dodge this pathetic attack at all. He just gripped the blade of the sword with his bare hand. The foolish swordsman asserted that this sword was given to him by his father as a generational heirloom. So, what did the cheeky fifth elder do, you ask? He flashed a smug smile and gripped the blade even tighter. He squeezed so tight and eventually broke the tip of the sword. He just snapped the thing in half. Then, he choked the fool, making the ugly swordsman fear for what was about to happen next. The fifth elder just stood there, choking one of the Ghost Sword Gate's minions in cold blood. Then everybody witnessed the most brutal chokeslam in the history of chokeslams. The impact was so hard that it broke the concrete pavement on the floor. Dong Guang was quite pleased with himself. It looked like all these sword-bearing fools had laughable skills. While he was about to go after more scrubs, he noticed what his fellow elder was doing in the middle of the battlefield. Yukpei has been pelted with multiple blade wounds all over his body, bleeding in various places while still assuring Deung Guang that they're in this together. Another sword freak came forward for the smoke, seemingly confident with his skills. He felt his sword make contact with flesh, but he was not able to cut through at all. Yukpei has been telling enemies that they cannot leave a single scratch on his body with these weak attacks. He keeps on proclaiming that, but his bleeding rate is alarming. When called out that he's wounded, the fourth elder would get offended and dish out a counterattack with his fists. With the swordsman's blade unable to deal damage, Yukpei got a free punch in the face. The guy braced himself for impact but was surprised to not feel any pain from the punch at all. On the contrary, the punch felt good. Yukpei yelled at the swordsman for looking at him weirdly and asked if he wanted to get hit more. The swordsman requested a full course massage. This is due to the fourth elder's hidden trait, the legendary massage hands, making his attack power non-existent. Gun watched everything unfold from above, surveying the field. While his trusted men engage in the courtyard, he is left alone on top of the stairs. Some Ghost Swordgate members managed to sneak up past the stairs. They couldn't believe that the man calling himself a new cult leader was letting them get this close so easily. They're starting to think that Gun must have used some tricks to win against the previous leader. The sneaky duo bravely charged forward with the intent of killing the head to topple the playing field. But just as they were about to do a slash and run, a cold voice called out from behind. Kim Gun has long since felt the presence of the duo and made his way behind them to launch a counter-sneak attack. From the start, these fools were already looking in the wrong direction. Gun swiftly eliminated one by twisting the assassin's neck in one quick motion. You must not forget that our boy is the most successful hitman in the previous world. With one down, there's only one sneaky assassin left to deal with. After seeing his partner's neck get snapped, the assassin heightened his senses. He finally sensed the enemy coming from behind. But he was too late. The sect leader had already sliced his throat before he could draw his blade. The poor guy did not even get to say his generic bad guy dialogue before his breathing stopped. Gun murdered two guys trying to get the jump on him without breaking a sweat. But it seems like his back was exposed, and he would need to deal with a lot more of these sneaky bastards. With a karambit blade equipped in his left hand, he asked the intruders if he looked like an easy opponent to them. Instead of letting himself get overwhelmed by the enemy's superior numbers, Gun charged by himself instead. A blade to the neck piercing upwards, a slash to the shoulder, and another to the carotid. A powerful kick right into the body. Kim Gun displayed his hand-to-hand combat proficiency convincingly. With two blades on both his hands, Gun showed that he's not just a one-trick pony with a gun. Just as he could easily wipe out groups of people with bullets, he could do the same with a blade. It's a lot flashier, but it requires more effort. After mowing down intruders, he wanted to give those who were still breathing a piece of advice for the next time they planned to attack someone. As a hitman, one of the most essential aspects of success is knowing your opponent. Down in the courtyard, the fifth elder made a mess of the Ghost Swordgate's minions. He paid back the blood that these bastards spilled from the cult's guards. It seems like things are slowly coming to an end on his side of the field. But they have not dealt with the biggest threat of them all, the man with the blade emitting an ominous aura. Minju finally had enough of seeing his men get mowed down by Daeong Guang, and he jumped to the fray with a terrifying slash. Fortunately, the fifth elder managed to dodge in time with his inhuman reflexes. He criticized Minju for resorting to petty surprise attacks, a shameful display of cowardice for the leader of a sect. It's embarrassing. But right as Daeong Guang was criticizing Minju for this dishonorable behavior, he felt a pang of pain that eventually paralyzed his entire body. Minju has been developing a poison developed for the assassination of Sahakyung. Who would have thought that this vile weapon would come in handy against the Tiger Vanquisher? With the fifth elder paralyzed, the ghostly swordsman was free to go wild with his blade with the intent of sending the elder to the side of his former leader. Using his freakish body, Daeong Guang resisted the paralytic for a little bit and tried his best to run up to the enemy. He unleashed a tiger's mouth fist that landed on the blade itself. Both of their inner force wrestled for supremacy. The clash ultimately led to both Minju and the fifth elder flying into opposite sides of the field with the rebound. Being the freak of nature that he is, Daeong Guang gains back control of his body, but the remaining poison in his system stops his inner arts from reaching his fists. Kim Gun was still watching upstairs with a grave expression on his face. He keeps on patting his pockets for his missing gun at such a critical time. He might be able to slaughter small fries, but he doesn't have a good feeling about this. Thankfully, another pivotal member of the sect would come in clutch at the perfect time. Mongo grabbed the gun from where his dad had left it and ran back while clutching the pistol in his mouth. He really is an intelligent pup. Watching from afar, he could see that the fifth elder was struggling against Minju's continuous barrage of attacks. Dealing with this would be difficult without a ranged weapon. Still, he has to be mindful of every bullet he lets go as they're heavily limited. He can't afford to waste ammo. However, he can't let such a threat like Minju get out of here scot-free. While he was aiming his gun at the demon gatekeeper, ready to pull the trigger, he noticed something coming from the sky. Minju was maniacally laughing as he played with the fifth elder, thinking that the prestige of the old sect was gone. Now the Mongu cult will belong to him to integrate and bolster his ghost sword gate. Just as he was finishing his arrogant proclamation, two sets of metal chains wrapped around his neck as two women bind him while they're in midair. Then, the main event showed up. She was wearing a sultry dress and wielding two deathly sharp daggers on both hands. Minju went from yapping about his victory to begging for his life in just a few seconds. But it might be a little too late for that. As soon as the woman wearing the elder robe landed in the courtyard with her subordinates, the demon gatekeeper's body was sliced in half and hit the ground. It made two thudding noises, one for the left and one for the right. The assassination specialization branch of the Holy Blood Sect, the Iron Blood Squad, has come to pay respects to the new leader properly. But this situation is highly unfavorable. At their helm is the captain of the Iron Blood Squad and the third elder of the cult, Jin Hwaran. She politely extended her salutation to Kim Gun. Finally seeing the third elder in action, he couldn't help but feel interested. This woman just seems much more helpful than all the other elders combined. Still, this is not a happy and peaceful meeting. Jin Hwaran is actually curious about the level of her new boss's skills. The veteran captain assassin did not waste another second and drew her blade while charging towards the leader. She wanted a first-hand experience of the technique that won against both the former head and Dung Guang. Gun was wholly unprepared for the assassin lady's charge. He looked like he just got caught with his pants down. But just as she was about to slash his body to bits, Jin Hwaran seemingly pumped up the brakes and held herself back. Originally, she was just planning to scare the new boss a little bit, but came upon something very interesting. The new leader was caught off guard, but he still had the automatic response to react and block in that split second. She assessed that he did not luck his way to the top spot. Then she got the idea of testing whether he could stop another attack too. That's when Kim Gun spoke up and advised her not to do what she was thinking of anymore, as he's not so generous as to let 2 attacks go by without retaliating. He already has the pistol in his hand. She had heard about this infamous weapon that got everyone so scared. Still, she thinks that it's not enough to just defeat the former leader and the 5th elder. She wants to check if that weapon is all for show. But just as she was about to brazenly charge for another round, something deep in her gut told her to stop. Being someone familiar with killing and bloodshed, she developed a keen sense of danger. Jin Hwaran could not help but feel an ominous feeling. She felt as though taking another step forward would be the biggest mistake of her life. It's as if the flames of hell are already calling to her. It felt like confronting the devil himself, as if the devil wielded a blade and a weird weapon that brought about certain death. She knew that making the wrong move would end her. So, she did not dare move a muscle under the vigilant gaze of the new boss. The bald first elder could not handle the tension. He does not know what's going on with those two, but he became so scared all of a sudden. Jin Hwaran sheathed her blades and stated that she understood how Kim Gun managed to rise to the top now. Only the strongest of all can become the leader of the cult. So, she was just trying to do her due diligence in verifying that simple fact. Once again, she sincerely apologized for the disrespect she had shown to the leader. Gun was still pissed though. This crazy assassin just tried to seriously kill him, but she's actually making some good points. Now that the brief internal strife was settled, a groggy moan can be heard near one of the walls. Jumgaeon Pung, Ghost Sword Gates number 2, is starting to wake up. He thinks he just passed out for a second. The enemy might have incredible strength, but he won't give up like this. And so, the fool started cursing out the Mongo sect to come at him again. He even boasted that their sect leader's nickname is the Cruel Sword. He proudly proclaimed that Minju would slaughter, torture, and violate everyone who resisted. And with the supplies they will pilfer. They will hold a festival of blood. The brute went on and on about how strong his leader was, but stopped upon seeing Minju's cut-up corpse on the floor. He clicked his tongue and quickly changed his tone. Now, he's saying that this mission was a bad idea from the beginning. Hearing that, the ghost of Minju appeared in the courtyard. He just solemnly nodded his head in agreement. They really messed up trying to pull this stunt. Night came, and Gun retreated to his quarters. It's been a long day, but they somehow managed to resolve the situation. But this was just the beginning. The coming year will be full of such incidents as they set off to conquer Murim. On the way to unification, they will undoubtedly come across powerful enemies. Guys that can send people flying with a single punch like the previous sect leader. Maybe there will be guys that can split the earth with their swords, like the Demon Gatekeeper. If they're only the start of this arduous war, they'll inevitably face stronger foes. It's not far-fetched to think that the next person to lose their head and die would be him. But those are useless thoughts at the moment. Tonight he has Mongo to keep him grounded and motivated. Unable to rest after such a disturbing thought, he seeks out Baldy for some talking. The first elder had to stomach the insults and welcome the leader with a fake smile. Anytime he's in the same room as this man, Baldy's anxiety goes into turbo mode. But tonight, Gun just wanted to ask where he can find information on possible enemies they will have to fight against, as well as potential partners they can rely on for the future. Baldy was taken aback. This unruly leader was actually asking a normal and reasonable question for once. He thought for a little bit and presented the idea of paying a visit to the Hao clan. It's a clan consisting of low-class people such as porters, courtesans, and restaurant managers. People who are experts in blending into the background while important people go on about their business. They are pros when it comes to collecting information from here and there. Sure, you can call them rats that deal in deception, but they are incredibly powerful. Hao clan might have the most extensive information network in the area. They sell information to third parties. You could say that they're the leading information brokers in the game. Gun liked the sound of that, so he asked the first elder where they should go to meet them. Baldy was surprised once again. The Prince of Senseless Violence actually wanted to go do some risky business himself. Well, Gun wants to hear the information firsthand and make his own judgment on the matter. Baldy offered to look for some people to serve as the leader's escort team. Gun is okay with that. However, he doesn't want that crazy third elder joining his party. But that might be a bit problematic as the third elder knows her way around the seedy underworld the best. Still, from what Gun has seen, that woman was just too volatile. Speaking of volatile, the fifth elder just casually appeared beside Gun without getting detected. Daeyoung proudly volunteered himself to guide the leader towards the Hao clan. Gun was so surprised, his first instinct was to punch the elder in the liver. With the red-haired airhead agonizing over the punch while on the floor, Gun demanded that this guy be banned from his escort team too. The preparations were quick and efficient. The leader was now en route to arrange some kind of deal with the Hao clan. Inside the carriage was the speechless Gun and the fifth elder, who was way too excited. He explicitly instructed Baldy to not include this brute in the trip, but here they are. To make matters worse, even the psycho-killer third elder has tagged along. She's even dressed up in beautiful green attire. It's like she's going out for a lovely evening in the town. Back in the meeting room before the trip, Baldy raised the need for the cult leader's escort team to visit the Hao clan. As soon as he asked for volunteers, the third and fifth elders immediately raised their hands dutifully. Baldy was once again put in a tough position. Jin Huaran made the case for herself. Since her missions have always taken her outside sect grounds, it's only natural for her to go since she knows most about the outside world. Also, it's been a while since she went out to eat delicious food and buy new clothes. Daeyoung heavily disagreed. He thinks that he should be present wherever the cult leader goes. He believes that they are one in body and mind. Even the psycho assassin could not take the things he was spouting seriously. The Tiger Vanquisher has never even been to the Hao clan's territory before. He tries to disrespect her, but Jin Huaran bites back. She has seniority, after all. Dong Guang should be calling her senior sister and not talking back. The fifth elder doesn't even know how to get to the Hao clan, but he's confident that he'll manage somehow. Baldy just stayed silent. He was already checked out with this task. He'll just let the leader ride with whoever. Stuck in the worst-case scenario in his head, Kim Gun was still holding on to his sanity by thinking of killing Baldy first thing when he got back. The carriage coach informed them that it was getting late and that it would be better for them to spend the night in the city. They were welcomed by the sight of a bustling commercial district with multiple drunkards roaming the streets. The party went straight to an inn and was greeted by an employee. Fifth elder asked for some rooms to spend the night in and some food and drinks. Gun ordered Korean-style pork bone broth with blood sausages and rice with some soju on the side. The employee took note of their orders and assured them that all their needs would be taken care of. It was going swimmingly until a group of young men entered the inn like they owned the place. They're a group of Kunlun sect's first-generation disciples demanding to know if the inn has any drinks and empty rooms left. Jeoksang Cheon, also known as Kunlun sect's lout, asserted that they'll take everything, and if there's nothing left, then the staff had better make some. The employee humbly apologized that the guests standing in the lobby had already taken the last rooms. The evidently drunk Jeoksang Cheon came up to Gun's face, asking if Gun knew who he was. He once again insisted that they would be taking the rooms, so Gun and his entourage should find another place to stay. While he was demanding rudely, the lout noticed someone behind the man he was speaking to. He laid his eyes upon the peerless beauty of Jin Huaran. It was infatuation at first sight. He never would have thought that there was such a heavenly beauty in this town. The lout switched his attention to her, asking intrusive questions. Then he pulled out his best move, introducing himself as a first-generation disciple of the great Kunlun sect. He added that a beauty like her shouldn't be hanging around low-class guys, so she better spend the evening with a first-generation disciple. The fifth elder is about to explode in anger. He would have eviscerated these spoiled brats if not for the fact that they're members of the Kunlun sect. Back in the meeting room earlier in the day, the bickering could only be stopped by one man. The scholarly second elder settled the dispute by making the call to send both Jung Guang and Jin Huaran to escort the boss to the Hao clan. However, they need to always keep something in mind. They cannot let other sects hear about their movements, so they need to avoid causing problems at all costs. The fifth elder cannot hold it anymore. He would rather get out of this place and find another inn than fail to control himself. The lout noticed that his face was grimacing as if he was holding back a complaint. Before the dumbass disciple could incite any more trouble, he was knocked down by a ballbuster. It was a critical hit. Kim Gun stood before the victim of the ballbuster with a grave expression. The lout bent and curled in agony while still trying to pull out the status card as if being a first generation of whatever sect would scare off the scum silencing demon. Instead of scaring them off, it only earned Jok Sangcheon another kick. This time, it was straight to the jaw. Gun must have injected a fair bit of strength into that kick, enough to make the drunken fool fly all over the lobby's inn. The leader stood on business. If this Kunlun sect is so powerful, then he would gladly wait for the young men to call their guys. He will also be waiting for that food he ordered a while ago anyway. The fifth elder might be a bit dumb, but he knows that they just failed on the only condition of this trip. They are practically broadcasting where they are to the enemies. Looking at the knocked-out disciple of the Kunlun sect, he was starting to accept the fact that they were royally screwed. The fifth elder's face sweats profusely because our hero has officially invited trouble, and it seems the lady knows there's no turning back now. So, when those rowdy lackeys of that cocky disciple charge at our party, the lady quickly throws her dagger at lightning speed, and that knife finds its mark right in the chest of this hobo. The lady jumps into the air, and as this guy with the thin mustache asks why she's cowardly throwing knives, his wish to face her head-on is granted when she kicks him solidly above his head, probably scrambling his brain entirely. As the lady lands back on the ground, she places her hand on the floor, swings her leg again, and delivers a devastating blow to another dude with a dagger tucked in his chest. And once they're down, she quickly gets back on her feet while those two goons drop unconscious from her brutal head-splitting blows. The third elder then calls her guards, and immediately two ladies clad in red appear, reporting back to her. The woman retrieves her knife and orders her lackeys to clean up the mess. Since she left those guys alive, she instructs them to give them the wandering soul drug to make them forget everything and then dump them in a bar with many harlots. After that, she turns to our hero, saying she wants to talk with him. Kim Ji-yeon agrees, but he's not sure if he should be ready in case she attacks him out of nowhere again. Nevertheless, they all calm down, and the lady asks the sect leader if he knows the people they just picked a fight with. Well, of course, this idiot didn't have a clue when he delivered that disciple a solid nutcracker, so he shrugs and asks who the heck they were. That's when the lady reveals they're disciples of the Kunlun sect, which is part of the Muram alliance that brought down our Blood Death sect, which is now rebranded by our hero as the Mangu sect. She's worried that if word gets out about today, their sect's dark past could repeat itself, and she doesn't want to lose her sect, which is like a second family to her. The mention of family triggers some memories for this John Wick here, and it turns out the dude never had one. He was raised in an orphanage. In the end, he gets where she's coming from and assures her he'll be mindful of it. The red gorilla looks pretty shocked to see that it's unlike our hero to agree to anything so easily. The hitman then asks if the Hao clan is also part of the Muram alliance, to which the lady says no. She suggests that he and Dongguan head to the Hao clan and leave this place as soon as possible. The gorilla asks what she's going to do here if he's tagging along with our hero, to which the lady replies she's staying to clean up the last remaining evidence of their commotion they have caused here. So, the third elder decides to leave to do her thing, and our hero also sets off on his journey in a carriage. After a long tiring journey, the fifth elder finally gives Kim Ji-yeon good news that they've arrived. As they enter the Hao residence, our hero boldly calls out if anyone's around. An elder immediately responds, pleasantly asking how this old man can be of help. Kim Ji-yeon immediately mentions that he's heard this place sells some special alcohol. The old man perks up at the mention of fine wine, quickly pulls a lever, and guides our hero further into the secret pathway. They descend down the gloomy stairway, and once inside the tunnel, the old man directs them towards a cabin ahead. As they enter, another man greets them. He introduces himself as Mengi, the manager of the Hao clan's Qinghai province branch. Even though he is being outwardly polite, inwardly he wonders if he should even show our hero that much respect, considering how messed up the Blood Death sect's reputation is, which now also goes by the name Mangu sect. The old man finally asks the reason behind our hero's visit. The gorilla immediately senses the insincerity in the old man's tone, and it really starts to bother him. Meanwhile, my guy acts like a goofball and stays silent in response to the old man's question. The manager doesn't like how our hero ignored him, so he decides to play it more cunningly. He apologizes if he's done anything to disrespect the leader of the great Mangu sect, calling himself lowly and saying he can't grasp the deeper meanings of things. He politely asks our hero to speak up about what's bothering him. Once again, the gorilla gets even more ticked off, like his veins are about to pop. If these slick talkers keep jabbing at him, he's definitely going to lose it. On the flip side, my man plays it cool, just chuckling at first, but his chuckles soon turn into maniacal laughter. The manager Mengi joins in this creepy laugh-off, both of them laughing like it's some kind of twisted comedy show, while the gorilla is seething with anger. But then Mengi's face gets serious real quick, letting our hero know he's not here for a stand-up routine. Kim Ji-yeon turns to Dongguan and asks if what he said about the Hao clan being unrelated to the Muram alliance is true. The gorilla confirms once again. With that in mind, our hero points his finger. Before Mengi can react, my guy gives the already annoyed gorilla the green light to take him down. Without needing to be told twice, Dongguan delivers a devastating punch right to the bastard's face, sending him flying backward and crashing through every door and wall. Kim Gi-yeon strides forward, exuding the aura of a seasoned killer, and makes it clear to this blockhead that as the leader of the Manhwa sect, he expects to be greeted with respect by